Obviously, AI within art is controversial. I was actually part of this show at Christie's in New York a few weeks ago, where there was a mass letter, open letter, from other artists saying they wanted this show cancelled. I really wanted someone to throw soup over my work. Well, they didn't. I was disappointed. My name's Brendan, and I'm an artist. And I always had a problem with that phrase, artist, because for a long time I thought, well, I'm a designer, a digital designer or a graphic designer and that kind of thing. Creative technologist, hate that phrase. A lot of people try and use it on me. Don't. But the thing is, over the last few years, I thought, no, I'm going to embrace. I'm an artist, that's what I am. So it's great when you go to family functions or things like that, right? And they go, Brendan, what do you do? And I go, I'm an artist. And the next question guaranteed is, what kind of artist? And when I say, to be simple, I'm a digital artist, the look of disappointment on the face is just palpable. It's like, oh, not real artists then, not sculpting things out of clay or, massive canvases with paint. No, just type things in a computer, that's it. So, but over the years, I've learned to embrace it. I am an artist, I'm a digital artist, but actually, really, I'm what you would call a generative artist, right? So not generative AI, we'll get onto AI at the end. The two are different. Generative art, and this is the best thing I've ever read, the description of generative art ever. I was reading in a book, I read books and everything. So generative art exists on the threshold of artifice and nature, conscious decision and wild happenstance. I was like, wow, that is generative art as far as I'm concerned. You're creating a system that has rules and parameters and variables, and you're the god of that system. And then you press go, and then this thing generates and makes work and art and images and all kinds of things. But the thing is, this is actually a lie, because this isn't actually about generative art, it's about gardens. So gardens exist on the threshold of artifice and nature, conscious decision, and wild happenstance. So this is Olivia Laing's amazing A Garden Against Time. I just read this book, it's amazing. It's about our relationship with gardens, how they are both selfless and selfish, and a privileged place, and paradises are built not by the people who build them, but by the people that are excluded from them. That's what a paradise is. So, I use a lot of nature and algorithmic stuff and that kind of thing in my work. And so a generative system, you put rules in place and then you watch it grow, and then you look at the possibilities and think, oh, that's interesting, let's go down that route, that kind of thing. So here, for instance, I've got 4 things, kind of like DNA, is made from 4 things. Our DNA is made from 4 things, and we can press go, and then it makes a decision, and it branches sometimes, and it turns that way, and it turns another way. And so I see this as lots of possibilities. Maybe that bit's ugly and that bit's really nice. Let's explore that bit. So these kind of systems kind of fascinate me and power a lot of the work that I do. The other thing I do, though, is much of my work is about taking things that already exist and remixing them into different things. And that started, there was a moment in the early 90s when it was cool. So I used to make breakbeat albums for an underground record label in London, and I would go around vinyl record shops and find interesting beats and then cut them all together with a razor blade and tape, because I couldn't afford a sampler. And I made these like 3-minute loops, and then we put them out on vinyl, highly illegal, no permission, we just did it. And now I realize that I'm still doing this. I probably need to get more friends, but I'm still doing this, but digitally in a different way. And this, of course, is kind of like Duchamp's ready-mades, where he takes a urinal and puts it in a gallery and says it's art, because he says it's art. And you know, all contemporary art comes from that moment. But it's more like what also is called rectified ready-made. So you're taking the ready-made that exists and then twisting it and altering it in some way. So one of the things I did very early on in my career, I was always making experiments, and I did this. So that is Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo in one image. Every row is 1 minute of film time, and the frames are sampled 1 second at a time, and that's the entire film. So I put that on this amazing thing called the internet. And I put it out there in 2004, and people wrote about it, and people liked it, and you can kind of see the close-ups there. And then the Museum of Modern Art got in touch in 2007 and emailed me. I didn't know anyone there, and they said, we love this thing called Cinema Redux, as I called it, and we'd like to put it in this show in MoMA. So, and then they did it 30 feet high, so it's that wall. You can't really see it on this picture. So then we went out to MoMA, and opening party, and my mind was like blown. And then if you're really sad when it's in another exhibition at MoMA, you take pictures of people taking pictures of your work because you really need to get out more. So I'm going to crack on because my time's run out. But so the other thing, so I like to do this thing of taking things that exist and twisting them into other forms. Like, there's this machine learning thing where you can take, it finds the human figures in pictures and images. And I thought, let's use film again. What if I took the end sequence of Kill Bill Volume 1, which is quite violent, as you know, and I strip out all the human figures, right? And then I'd make something with it. So I made this. And so this is the entire sequence of the end of Kill Bill Volume 1, visualized. Obviously, you can tell. It's obvious. So there's the yellow jumpsuit, and you see the red bit at the beginning, if you know that sequence. I'm not going to explain it, but it's nasty. So, and you see the yellow jumpsuit of Black Mamba's outfit there, and that is the entire sequence. So I do these things because it's about creating alternative realities, about creating alternative worlds where you can see different stories and ask questions about the world around us. I'm not interested. Realize I wasn't a designer because I have no interest in providing answers to anyone. I want to put questions in the world. I'm not interested in answers. I want you to be bemused and weirded out. So I work, but I do work a lot with data. So I have this phrase that I've always used. Data by itself is not enough. Data needs poetry. It's kind of like when Jimi Hendrix says, it's not about the notes, it's about the space between the notes. So when I get a spreadsheet of data, I'm looking for the story, the bits in between. And that's also about working with people, because I think the web is not a network of machines, it's a network of people. And over the years, I never really collaborated with that many people. I was like, just leave me alone, for Christ's sake. So, and then I did start to work with some brilliant people, ballet dancers, musicians, and also film directors. So this is Gary Huswit, who directed the films Helvetica, Objectified, Urbanized. Anyone seen Helvetica? That film about... Why aren't you watching films about fonts? What's wrong with you? Weirdos. But it's about culture. So Gary made his name making this design trilogy, and it was really amazing. So we first met at South by Southwest in 2009. We were speaking on a panel together, and we've been friends ever since, and always wanted to, do a project. So in 2019, Gary sends me this email. He says, "Hi, Brendan, Happy New Year, blah, blah, blah. I want to bounce an idea off you and see your thoughts. The solution might be, I'd like to attempt to make a generative documentary, a film that's created in real-time software. And the main bit is, it is never the same twice, right? Would you be interested?" And you just write back in big capital letters, yes. You don't know how it's going to be done. You don't care if you even know. I want to do things I don't know how to do. So I was like, yes, Gary, let's do this. So we then made a prototype, and we were working with, we'd just made a film about Dieter Rams, the German industrial designer. So we started to use that software, and I was making this, that footage, and I was making this software, and we were doing a prototype. And then he said to me, well, actually, the reason we're doing this is because I want to go to Brian Eno, the person who pretty much created ambient music, legendary record producer, wrote Heroes with David Bowie, etc., etc. I want to go to him and make a documentary, see if he will make a documentary with us, because I asked him before, and he said no. And he said, with documentaries, there's only ever delivered one truth, and there's multiple truths with people, right? So Brian was not interested. So we took this prototype to Mr. Brian Eno, and he said yes. And this is the film poster that's like, it never ends, so you can put it all one. This is like 3 posters in one, which then Studio Bill did that based off some of the design work we'd done. So, but before all that, we had the opportunity to play around with this software in a large installation at the Venice Biennale. So me and Gary went out to the Venice Biennale, and we wanted to create a version that had no narrative at all. It was just like, we just let it run and generate the visuals on the fly. We don't know what's going to happen, just press go. So we did this at the Venice Biennale in 2023, October 2023, and we presented this work, and I can show a little bit of it. Now, the weird thing is, right, it ran for 168 hours non-stop. Even overnight, when there was no one there, it carried on. And we were like, I wonder what it's making. And we go, I don't know. We're never going to know, right? So it wasn't recorded. It was just in the moment. So we did this thing, and you can see a little bit of video. We've got some audio on this. And the weird thing was, for me, I thought, is anyone going to, are they going to stay for 10 minutes and then go? People were there for 3 hours because they didn't know what was going to happen next. So all this is generative, creating a rule-based system and then just let it play and make these visuals on the fly. So then after this, we then discovered we got into the Sundance Film Festival, and we were opening the Sundance Film Festival. We still had no film, by the way. So we then had to make a film. And we were going to do 6 different versions for Sundance. So I can play you the latest trailer.
The question that's been interesting me for my whole life really is, what does art do for us? Why do we want art at all? The kind of change that art makes is at a rather deep level of consciousness. Art is a way we synchronize our feelings about things. I now have 50 years of work behind me, and I talk about it now as if I had the whole thing figured out in my head, but I didn't. They were just feelings of somewhere I was going. When you create something, you're doing this thing that humans are very good at, which is imagining. It's a way of entering another world, looking at its values, seeing how they work out. And that, of course, all impacts on how we think about the world that we actually live in.
We really need to be able to harness the intelligence and creativity of everybody, actually.
Art is a way we do that. I think that's a real hope for the future.
Can you tell us your full name?
Brian, Peter, George, St. Jean le Baptiste de la Salle, Eno.
Okay, so we did that, and then it was like the UK premiere at the Barbican, and because we just want to make things harder for ourselves, we thought we want to do it live, where we just press a button and it just works, right? So it's not recorded, there's no file. So we said, let's get our friends Teenage Engineering in Sweden to make a machine that we can have at the Barbican, and so we made this 32 kilo machine. in Sweden. I was there in Sweden the week before during the week of the Barbican premiere, and then I had to come back a day early, and then Gary flew on the morning of the Barbican premiere. We'd never tested it, and we made this amazing machine that the reels move and everything. I'm pretty much out of time, but we're gonna have to cut the Q&A a bit, Herb. Sorry, but. I'd probably talk shite anyway, so it doesn't matter. So anyway, here's this beautiful machine, right? So this generated the machine in real time at the Barbican in front of 2,000 people, and it worked. It was mad. So then what happens is, we then go around the world doing these premieres and stuff like that. There's the Japanese premiere coming up in June. So that'll be fun. I'm not going to that one. Thanks, Gary. So then what happens is, of course, we use this word generative, when we're talking about this film, because it's a generative system. And, of course, what happens? The journalists go, generative AI. And they go, no, it's not AI. I had to argue with people on Wikipedia going, it's generative AI. I go, it's not generative AI, it's generative. And they go, what do you know? And I go, well, I wrote the bloody thing. And they go, so I had to wait for an article interview with us to cite us to go, oh, right, okay, now we believe you. I was like, well, I guess that's why Wikipedia is like it is. But, so, let's talk about AI. That's how I'm going to finish. So, obviously, AI within art is controversial. I was actually part of this show at Christie's in New York a few weeks ago where there was a mass letter, open letter, from other artists saying they wanted this show cancelled. I really wanted someone to throw soup over my work. Well, they didn't. I was disappointed. Here's this thing. So this is Lisa Doll, who was beaten 4 out of 5 times by AlphaGo in 2016. And he said this after he was devastated by, being beaten by a computer. And after a few weeks, he said, this was commented on about it. Maybe it can show humans something we've never discovered. Maybe it's beautiful. And that's the possibility for me with AI and art, is I want it to augment my imagination. I want it to take me and show me things. I'm not interested in it creating photorealistic car chases and things like that, which I'm sure is going to be useful. So let's end with some robots. We're talking about robots. Not as good as C-3PO, but these are robots that I collect. These are not renders. These are tin Japanese robots from the 50s. So I thought, what if I trained an AI on my robot collection? I could make some weird shit robots, right? So I made 256 robots, which I then sold digitally, completely sold out over a period of a couple of months. And here they are. And then I got Clip Vision to write a description based on what it saw. So I did this romantic description for each robot. And there's 256 of these. And then I thought, finally, well, hang on a minute. What if they had sex? Right? So I got them and I mated them using AI, visually and textually. And they had sex and I watched. So don't take that out of context, please, right? Don't just do that clip. That's weird. So I made, here's some of those. So the parents are at the top, and then the child is at the bottom. Yeah. Just think about them getting it on in a robot way. It's special niche website right there. So this is how I'm going to end. So this was the toy I played with when I was 7 or 8. This is when they bought Action Man rights in Japan, but rather than, because they were Japanese, they thought, we'll make it science fiction. So they put a body inside it, a machine, and it was called the Cyborg. And I've still got one of these. And that's what interests me now, is the coming together of humans and machines, post-humanism, all that kind of stuff. I think it's really interesting. It's scary and exciting at the same time. I'm going to leave you with this quote from Virginia Woolf, because there is a new chapter coming, and it's going to be new and unknown and strange, and it is going to be terrifying, but it's about to shape itself. So thank you very much.
sorry, yeah. Great. We're actually running slightly ahead of time, so
that's
we've
okay.
absorbed. We suspected you might leak slightly over time
Sorry.
in your artist way. So I actually want. So thank you for a fantastic presentation. I had actually seen a lot of that stuff, so it was great to see for the first time myself, and to hear the backstory about Eno, which was also really cool. But if I remember from one of our earlier conversations, your original plan was not artist. So you started out, and if I remember correctly, when you started out in life, I guess that plans didn't kind of go right, and then ultimately you kind of meandered into web design or design just generally. So
I studied sound engineering for a year, and because I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left school. I had no qualifications or anything. I hated school, so but I was always programming and stuff. But eventually, I did a sound engineering course in Manchester, and the people on the course went on to form 808 State and people like that. So I then put out a few records and made £400. But they're still available, by the way. And then I ended up working in a factory, but they're making electronics, just the circuit boards, not even the cool bit. So I was drilling holes in fiberglass for 8 years. And then this thing called the web came along in '96, and I saw this advert for a web design company in Burnley, in Nelson near Burnley, and I rang them up and I said, "Do you need a web designer? Because I can make websites." And of course there was no course, just to find people. So I ended up going there, and it was a 50% drop in wages, but my wife just said, "This is your way out," right? So you always got to be surrounded by people who support you, I think. Then what happened was we had a sticker on the door. We're Subnet, we were called. And Club 1830, remember Club 1830? Right, so Club 1830 were in the same building, and he knocks on the door and said, "Could you make us a website like that?" And we went, "Yeah." So that then became dead famous, and we got Kellogg's, Disney, Coca-Cola. We ended up working, and we were just making it up.
Yeah.
And there we were. And we didn't know anything about marketing, but we could make cool websites.
Yeah.
And so, and then I met people in New York, and I ended up going to work in New York, and then it just went from there, really. Ended up doing books and things.
Fabulous. Okay, so one of the things you said during the talk was about how you want to do things that you don't know, that I think suggesting that challenge you, I guess.
Yeah.
Have you had periods in life where you did things that you did know how to do and then realized perhaps?
Yeah. There was an actual moment, an epiphany, I guess. In the end of 2018, I was working for a brand that will remain nameless. It's got a British shoe brand, and we were doing a photo shoot in Derbyshire and in London, and we had data things in the shoes, and they wanted me to, do a data visualization with all this information, and we did it, and it was okay, but it was just okay. It was like I was using the same techniques that I'd been using for like 3 years, and it was just before Christmas, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? This is just boring. And the client was happy, but I wasn't. So I then started to learn things like Houdini, which the Kill Bill thing was done in, and that kind of sent me off on a different trajectory. You can get too comfortable, complacency, comfort, they're all enemies of creativity. So I basically rebooted myself. No one else noticed. They all thought everything I was doing was okay, but for me personally, I was like, I wasn't happy, I was depressed, yeah.
Interesting. And just finally, the last bit about AI, I mean, obviously you suggest that there are a number of people that aren't necessarily that happy with your views about AI and your current embrace of it. Are there a significant number of people who are, if you will, behind you as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really good artists that are using AI intelligently. I'm not talking about typing things in Midjourney and then, I'm talking about creating their own models, creating their own systems, who have been doing this stuff for like 5 longer years. Mario Klingerman is one, Sofia Crespo is another, and they're doing really intelligent stuff that cannot be done in any other way, and I think that's a key point. The other key point is you want to see yourself in the work. You know, if I make something and there's no representation of me or my hand in it, then I don't publish that work. So that's still really important. So for me, AI is a collaborator. At times it's like an intern, unpaid intern that's like got a really bad hangover, and you're like, God, bloody do it, you know. It's a bit rubbish at times, but you know, when you meet people like that, you learn to work with them. Sometimes they can be brilliant, you know. That's my experience of working in an agency, by the way.
Brendan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.